Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman from the Greensboro, North Carolina Fire Department History Book Committee. We're here today at the Greensboro Historical Museum. I'm standing in front of the General Green, the first steam pumper, or as they called it back then, a steamer. Today, December 9th, 2019, we are starting a new tradition of recording and preserving the heritage and culture of our retirees. Our retirees have contributed so much to the success of our great fire department. Their stories retire with them and are sometimes gone forever when they pass away. They will share their emergency calls that will always be a part of their memories forever. So sit back and listen as they carry us through their journey in the Greensboro Fire Department.
All right, my name is Arley Reese Jr. I went on the fire department in New Year's Day, January 1st, 1973. And when I left and retired, I was a firefighter too, and I had 32 and a half years of service. I grew up out here in McLeansville, which was partly in the city limits now, but at the time it was outside the city limits. And I lived in that neighborhood or in Greensboro for a while, my entire life. Well, I was the first one in my family that I ever knew was interested in the fire service, but Matthew Clapp and Nathan Clapp are now on, and I have a grandson, Brandon Carroll, that's now in the process of trying to get on the Greensboro Fire Department.
What were you doing? I know what you're doing.
Well, when I got out of school, I got a job at Firefighter Chemical Company, and I worked there for about 5 years, and then I went to Burlington Industries Chemical Division, worked there for about 5 years before I came on the fire department. When I came on, I was married, I had 3 kids, in the process of building a house, and had a new car, and it was a pretty scary situation to change jobs. Well, the first thing I did was I went up and filled out an application, and then we were sent to the Employment Security Commission, I think, for testing. And they did some things, like what you were capable of doing, dexterity tests and stuff like that. And then we were sent out to the training center and went through a physical exam up there of holding your weight on a rope and running down to the tower and back. And it's really minor stuff compared to what they go through now for their physical. Being a firefighter never crossed my mind. The way I got interested in being a firefighter, when I was working at Burlington Industries, one of my friends there worked in the lab, and I worked in the warehouse, Tony Botts. We were eating lunch together one day, and he said, well, they're hiring at the Greensboro Fire Department, and they work one day and off too. And I was working like a dog 6 or 7 days a week, and I said, that sounds interesting to me. So I went out and went through the process and got hired, and he never did. And he was the one that actually led me to trying to get on the fire department. Wow. My starting salary was $551, and after I got out of training, I went to $583. I think there was about 20 people in my training class when I came on. Well, during my training, I was pretty steady. I always had a good outlook on everything. Some things were tough. I wasn't exceptionally good in math, and when they started talking about doing square roots, I have no idea what they were talking about. And Jerry Price helped me get through that. But yeah, training was good. I enjoyed it, and no problem with it. Well, Carl Eller was one that I'm still real close and real good friend with Carl, and Charlie Jones and Fowler, and what a memorable person to me. When I was in training, I don't really remember. I was pretty serious because I was under a lot of pressure, as I told you before. So I was pretty serious about everything, and I didn't have a lot of foolishness going on. I was studying at night when I wasn't there in the daytime. Well, it was different from any of the jobs I had before because it was really a more of a personal thing where you were, felt like you were doing something for people and not doing a job. And so it was different. And after I actually got on and wrote a few calls, then it really struck me that I was, doing something for somebody besides myself.
Good answer.
My first assignment when I went out on the line out of training, I was on Engine 2 at Old Central Station, 318 North Green Street. My captain was Captain Parrish, and Dan Banks, Eddie Nix, and Gary Falk was the driver on the truck. Fuquay, he nicknamed everybody. Me and Warren Ritter went up there on the same shift, and he named us Warren and Weasel. I'd always smile, so he named me Weasel. me and Julius Evans. I knew Julius Evans 8 or 9 years before I went on fire department. I worked with him at Pfizer Chemical, and we had an ongoing thing for our entire career together. And one of the funniest things, or two things that were real funny, he was always throwing firecrackers on people. You'd be watching TV, he'd throw a firecracker on you. So he was on the phone one night, and he would lay up on the phone and talk 2 or 3 hours. I took his uniforms, and I had my wife, bring me my sewing machine up, portable sewing machine, and I sewed every one of his sleeves, his pants cuffs, his pockets, his shirt pockets. I sewed them all together with as fine a thread as that thing would sit down on. And it was really funny because the next morning after he got up a shower, and he was in the dressing room, and he put one leg in his pants, and he was dancing around on the other, trying to figure out why his foot would go through his pants. And another thing, I had a birthday, and my sister-in-law, my mother, brought me a birthday cake, and they made it out of like a 9x9 yellow sponge and put icing all over it. And so when they brought that thing in, I think they'd already pre-sliced it, and Julius got him a slice of it, and my mom and him was standing there, so he was kind of under the gun, and he went over there and he said, "This tastes like a sponge cake." Thought Brad Cox was going to die. He laughed so hard he got down to the floor laughing. Two really funny things that happened. Yeah, when I was on the fire department to start with, it was kind of a thing, and I think all the stations cooked and ate together. And it was, when I went to Central Station, we had about 20 people there. And so, it was a large group of people that, and we had big meals, and, it was, if you were to cook that day, you wouldn't expect to do anything else but be sure you cooked a good meal. Yeah, I think it's really important to be together like that. It's just like your family sitting down eating meals. I think that time you spend together is very important. You get to know people, and it's a time when there's nothing else going on, and you can talk about each other's personal lives and stuff that you don't get to do when you're busy doing your work. I'd say I was fair. There was some better and some worse, but my meal I could cook. My specialty was country style steak, mashed potatoes, and green beans. And I would brown that steak and put it in a Dutch oven and put it in the oven for about 4 hours that afternoon, and it would be tender in a mother's love by night. Well, having the cubicles and the dorm style thing, everything has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage to the cubicle thing is you can have more private, quiet time, like if you're doing studies and stuff like that, where in the dorm style, sometimes you don't have that privacy, the quiet time where you can do stuff like that. But on the other hand, I still remember the days at the old Central Station when everybody slept in the open dorm upstairs, and everybody laid down. You say, "Good night, John boy. Good night, Billy," and go through that. And I enjoyed that, camaraderie there. Well, one of the funny things about the dormitory living, and it didn't necessarily do with that, but Chief Price, Francis Price, was the chief up there, and he didn't like a Coke bottle left in the TV room, and we would leave one in there intentionally, and he would be right up there. He'd call you up that night if he saw it, but he got up early, and he'd be in there early, get you out of bed. Everybody downstairs, there's a Coke bottle in the TV room, or if you didn't get up when the alarm test went off before you get up in the morning, he would be standing at the door waiting to roll you out of bed. Everybody on the floor, nobody sleep in. Well, it's hard for me to speak about what goes on today as far as what they do in the fire station today, because I've been retired for 15 and a half years. So, but our downtime, which when I first went on, we had a lot of downtime because we wasn't doing a lot of things they do now. They're busy now. Our big thing was get the station and trucks cleaned up, ride the fire calls, and have our class every afternoon and play ping pong and volleyball the rest of the day, and that was what we did. But now later on, especially when they got into the medical part, I went on the squad when they got the squads in '77. Mm-hmm. I went on the squad and we started riding the medical calls, and of course nothing compared to what they're doing today. But and then we started doing the smoke detector programs, and we were doing the 5th grade Edith school programs, and we were doing CPR classes at A&T University in one place or another. And so it got busier after the first 4 or 5 years I was there, and it got busier, so we didn't have downtime like we did. Well, they still take good care of their equipment, but there, you pull the truck out in the morning, and if it went on a call, if it went on 10 calls in a day, you washed it 10 times. Now if it's snowing, they might not wash it till the road's cleared up or at the end of the day or the weather broke. But I don't know, the stations I've been in, a lot of stations are outdated and being replaced, so they naturally don't look as good as the new stations. But these new stations they have are really nice. Well, when you go into a station and they come out and talk with you and spend some time with you, it feels like that you're still part of the fire department, and it makes you feel like that you did something to help get them where they are, right? There's a lot more technology and stuff now that they have now that we didn't have, but what we had is what we had, and I feel like we laid the groundwork for a lot of stuff that goes on today. Since I left the fire department, I can't say that I really miss anything. I love the fire department. I love my job, and it was a period of my life, and I let it go at that. I still go by the station sometimes and visit with the people and stuff, but now my time is retirement, and I do the things that I enjoy doing. I respect what they're doing, and I'm trying to enjoy my retirement as much as I enjoyed my job. Well, going to the breakfast and going to the club meeting gives me an opportunity to see people. And just normally, I'm not going to see those people. I run into one once in a while out shopping or something, but we go to the breakfast and we have 40 people. We come out to the Fireman's Club. Last month we had 45 people here, I think. And it gives me a chance to associate, talk over old times, and just be with the people that I work with for all those years. Other than that, if I don't do that, I'm just not going to see them anymore. Oh, I think it's great. I'm really thankful that y'all are doing this. This video and stuff that we're doing, and talking to all these people, and people get a chance to say things that maybe they've said to a few people or one or two people. But if this thing is put on video and people will be able to view what they said, they're going to hear things that they've never heard before, and they're going to know those people better than they ever knew them before. When I went on the fire department, like I say, when I went on Engine 2, when I went out on the line, I do not remember my first fire call. I do not remember my first call or whether I had a fire or not. But one thing I do remember, I was still on probation, and my driver and my captain, for some reason, took vacation or something, and so that left me and Dan Banks, and Banks couldn't see good, and so I was driving. I was still on probation, and I was driving 57 Ward of France, no synchronized transmission. Took an act of Congress to put it in pump gear. We got a call, I remember as well as anything, it was on Chestnut Street. I had no idea where Chestnut Street was. But Banks told me how to get there, and thank the Lord we got there and didn't hurt anybody or didn't get hurt. And it wasn't a serious call, it was, I think, an odor investigation or something. Yeah, when I first went on, our chief and our captains would question us, and our fellow firefighters. The captains and the chiefs would tell those guys, look, these guys have just come on, they got probation coming up, they better not fail it. And they would work with us on our knot tying, our ladder practices and all that stuff. The guys helped you more than anybody. They really took an interest in it because they knew that their superior was probably not going to give them a good raise if they didn't get you through that training, and they didn't want to be embarrassed about it. Yeah, I don't remember specifically who came out and asked us the questions, but they would take you out to the truck and ask you where things were on the truck. You were expected to know where your equipment was, how it operated, what it's used for, and be sure it's clean and in operating order. So when you got a call, you wouldn't have any snafus with your equipment. Yeah, on our medical calls, when I first went on, we had Rescue 2 up at Central Station, which was an old Chevrolet van, and all the rescue equipment on it basically was a Halligan tool, a crowbar, and a sledgehammer, and an axe. And the truck, we were lucky if you got there, because if you blew the siren, the battery would go dead. So, but we didn't ride medical calls. It really had to be something, a big pin in or something before we ever rode any calls. But then when we got to squads in '77, I went on to squad, and I was over at Station 7. Jay McCarter was my first captain on the squad. And me and Steve Fowler and myself to be correct, we got a call over on State Street, and I can't remember the street intersected. Anyway, a Pepsi truck or one of the vehicles ran the stop sign there, and it pinned the car against the wall. And we were the first ones to ever use the hearse tool. We just had, the squads were brand new, all our training was brand new, and we were the first people that got to use the hearse tool on the incident. I have two calls that I remember, medical calls that I remember. One was good and one was bad. Okay. And one, I'll tell you the good one first. Julius Evans, which I mentioned earlier, and he had already passed away. His daughter was pregnant, and I was at Station 15 at the time, and we delivered her baby. Probably 15 years after I worked with Julius. And the other call that really bothered me this day was a Sid's death, and having to go in and tell my mother that her baby was dead. Excuse me. But that still bothers me.
Well,
because I have grandchildren now, and great-grandchildren. Well, another good call that I remember was a really good call. Okay. I had 3 life-saving awards while I was on the squad. The first 2, when we first started getting them, if you got them to the hospital and they had a heartbeat, they were considered a save. I don't know if any of them ever made it until we got back to the station. But when I was at 15, we had a heart attack victim down on Vandalia at a curb market, and we used the defibrillator. We got the defibrillators in, and we brought that lady back, and 3 or 4 days later, me and Bob Oakley and Doug Patton and Lamont Baldwin went up to the hospital and visited her and her daughters, and they'd come to get her, and she was going back to New York, and I felt good about that call. Felt like I really accomplished something. Well, when you save somebody's life, or actually the Lord saves their life, you were part of it, and He put you there to do that. It makes you feel good that that they can go back to their families and go back and have life left in them, and hopefully a good life. And it's kind of exhilarating that to know when things like that happen, to know that you were part of it. I was on some fires. Went in on the downtown fire on Davie Street the next day after that fire. So it was, it burned for a month, but we were there, but we wasn't initially there. When I was out at Station 20 for 3 years, I think we had one fire, and we burnt the building down. the lightning struck a big warehouse out there, and it was deep seated into the building, and we lost that building. And of course, everybody in the fire department was out there, and then we had one on Banner Avenue. We had a fire there where we lost the entire building. It was a deep-seated fire, and a lot of stuff stored, a lot of combustibles stored in the building, and it didn't have a chance of accessibility to the building. All was limited, and I remember the squad. Me and Rick Gentry pulled in behind the building between a chain link fence, and Mick Newman, we were losing it. He said, "Get that squad out of here." And it had been raining, it was slick. So I got in the squad with an air pack on. And Gentry got against the front bumper trying to push the squad back out. We were determined to get that thing out of there. And Julius Evans busted his, he had the battering ram, and they had two handles, one to guard your hand, and he grabbed the front one and threw a brick wall and jammed his hand, and they sent him to the hospital, and then they put me on the ladder truck, running the ladder truck. Well, everybody says they remember where they were. I remember exactly. I'd been sent over to Station 5 that day because they had needed personnel. I was on a medical call on Pembroke Street down in Lou's office at 9/11. When all that happened, that's what I was doing that day. And I didn't know it till I got back to the station and they had it on TV. That was actually, I think, before the second building was hit. So it was right in the middle of all of it. And of course, the rest of the day, we canceled everything. We watched TV, watched what was going on there, wondered about what could happen here, how big it was across the nation, what else was going to happen anywhere in the United States. And so, the biggest thing I saw, it was a terrible thing, but incidents like that brings Americans together. And right away, you were having people volunteer to be in the military. There wasn't this political divide like it is today. Everybody pulled together. Everybody was concerned about the same issue. And it's terrible for this nation to have to come together under circumstances like that. It should be like that all the time. Well, I had some real good officers. Tex Ritter, Captain Ritter, he was a really good captain. He didn't get excited about things. He knew exactly what he wanted done, and he could tell you in a way that you understood what he wanted done. I know we would go to Cone Hospital 10 times a day. Coming back, I passed the ladder truck with the engine. When we got back, he told me, "You don't pass other fire trucks." So, in those uncertain terms, but I understood what he wanted, and he wasn't hard on me or anything. He just let me know what was expected. And another time when I was driving the truck, we'd gone on a call. That was when the old Henry Hotel was still there. And we'd gone on a call, and we were coming back down Bellmead going to the station. And just when we got there, we got a call downtown, and we had a working fire on. It seems like it was the old city MOB building. I believe that's what it was. But it was just like a trash can fire. He says, "Go down there and catch that hydrant." So we're going to lay 2 in and 2 out. And so they don't know what that means today, but it means you're laying 2 2.5s and 2 3s, and then you had to figure out what kind of pump pressure you needed to do that. But we went down and we set off our equipment and laid back, and it was just like a training drill out the training tower. He wasn't excited at all about it, and so therefore he didn't excite people on his company. Everybody was calm. Everybody knew what they were supposed to do, and he could explain it to you, and it went smooth as silk. Well, as far as people helping me, everybody I was ever around tried to help me. I don't remember anybody ever trying to do me any harm. They would help you in whatever way you needed, personally or on the job. The guys would help me around the station. They'd come out to my house when I was building a building or something and help me pour concrete and put up rafters and stuff. We just worked together and played together, and on and off duty. Well, that's an example of people, wanting to help each other. You could ask. A lot of times they would volunteer. What are you doing? You'd be putting a roof on your house. Like I say, I built 2 or 3 buildings. They'd come out. We poured concrete. We put up buildings. I went and helped them on their projects, and whatever anybody needed, no matter what it was. And when people had problems, if they needed, assistance with, food or whatever. Everybody just did whatever they could to look after their brothers. We always take, and I hope it is. I think the situation's a little bit different now in the fact that back then, you were either born and raised in the mill village or one of the farms around. We were still pretty much a farming community. And so all those guys, there was so many people that went to Rankin, McLeansville, Monticello schools that went to school together. They played sports together and just were together a long time before we got on the fire department. So a lot of them had a pretty good relationship before they ever went there. As now, it seems like they're more diversified people. They come here from out of state to get this job because it's a good place to work. And the word's out, so it's like baseball. We got 20 people, I can't even pronounce their name, much less know who they are. Well, I say my life-saving awards that I got was one of my most memorable moments. It meant something to me. No, I never had it. I always liked my job. I felt like I was, doing a good job. Felt like I was needed. I never questioned whether I should be there or not. Once I was there and got through training and wrote a couple of calls, I knew that's where I needed to be. I wanted to do it because I always wanted to do something for somebody else. I'm just that way. Even now, if I can help you out, you need help, I can help you out, I want to help you out. That's just the way I am. Well, as far as dealing with bad calls and death and stuff, a lot of times, and I know it might not sound good, but we would come back and we might make a joke about the call or something, just because the bad feeling about it we were trying to get rid of. And so we would come back and we would joke about this and joke about this, but I knew down deep inside that wasn't the way we felt, and they did too. That we were just trying to deal with it. We didn't have people come in, psychologists come in and talk to you and all. We talked to each other, right. And that was the end of it. So we had to work it out. We had to work it out between ourselves. Didn't you go crazy? Some of the stuff I've seen, some of the people that were hurt in car wrecks and all, the stuff's horrific. It really would weigh heavy on you if you didn't figure out some way to get rid of that stress. Well, when people get seriously injured or die in the fire department, it affects you. You really, they're like your family. And if you've ever lost a family member, you know how it is to lose somebody close to you, somebody you work with. I worked directly with Jackie Beard. Of course, Jesse Gray had got killed right before I came on the fire department. And then Raymond Cockman, I knew Raymond well. I never worked with him, but we fished together and we had a place down at the beach, a fishing club and stuff. So I'd spent time with him. I knew him pretty well. Him and Jay Lewis were, like peas and carrots. So I worked with Jay, and I knew them both real well. I was on the squad with Brad Cox, and one morning it must have been about 6 o'clock in the morning. We got a call to Ray's Kingburger there on the corner of Bessemer and Gatewood, right down from the station. Odor investigation. The squads rode dumpster fires, car fires, and odor investigation. Just 2 people. We rode those calls. We rode up on calls where there was a working fire. With just 2 people. Did what we did because somebody else could get there, but. We had a folding attic ladder, and we put it up, and I was going to try to take the ceiling tile up, and where we had to put it up was over a table and over the lock box. Because the energy crisis, they had lock boxes over the thermostat. Well, it was at such an angle, Cox was going to butt it, and it was a hard concrete-looking tile floor, And I got up top of that thing, and it shot him out across the floor. When I come down, the ladder raked the thermostat off the wall and crushed the table. That's not the funny part. The funny part, we got all cleaned up, straightened up, and we was going to get the insulation up. And there's a guy sitting over there having coffee. And we said, "Have you got a broom?" Because we didn't have anything. But we got a broom with dustpan. He said, "I think there's one back here in the back." He went and got it for us. We cleaned up our mess, and I went over and was going to get some information from him, for the call for our log. And and I said, you know, you the manager here, what's your name? He said, oh no, I just come here every morning for a cup of coffee. He said, I don't work here. He got a cup of coffee and a show that morning.
That's pretty good.
I think I want everybody to remember about me that I liked everybody, I cared about everybody. Sometimes our personalities are a little bit different, and we're closer to some people than we are others. But I never disliked anybody. I don't carry any hate or anything forward. Things happened over the years, you know, and sometimes the people are put in positions, especially people in management, are put in positions to say things, to tell you to do things that they're told to do, that somebody's telling them what to do all the way to the top. Somebody's telling you what to do. I mean, even the top man, the public's voting him in, they're telling him what to do. So you get told things, and you have to deal with things, and you think when you're young that you're the only person dealing with that. But as you get older, you realize that everybody, because I had friends that worked at Bell South and one thing or another, and we'd get to talking, and I say, you know, you're going through the same thing I'm going through. It's everywhere. That's just the way life is. But, you know, like I say, I enjoyed working with everybody. I have no animosity to anybody that I was ever with. And if I ever said anything or done anything to anybody, knowingly or unknowingly, because we joke around. Sometimes we joke around. We say things that bother people that we don't really know that it bothers them at the time. But I'd truly like to apologize to them if I ever hurt them or in any way. Well, I'd like for my family to remember that I cared about them. And, you know, I still do. I care about every one of them. And I tell people I got a large family, and I say it jokingly sometimes. They'll say, well, how are your grandkids doing or whatever? Because I got 16 grandkids and 8 great-grandkids. And I'll say, well, I got them from preaching to prison. Which one you want to talk about today? So really, I don't have any in prison right now that I know of. But, you know, I love them all. They've all, you know, at one time or another, we've had situations that I wasn't happy with, and other times that I was, but that's just life. But I love them, every one. Love my wife, you know. She's been good. She's been good. People don't realize that when you have a job and you're away like that, it's tough on your wife and your family too, because you miss things sometimes. You just can't, you know, get off it. You miss events that you'd like to go to, and you're not home every third day. You're gone, and so they have to run the house when you're gone. They have to play both parts.
We hope you enjoyed watching these documentaries. It was our goal to share and preserve the memories of our retired Greensboro firefighters. It is our desire that these documentaries will inspire future generations to continue the brotherhood, sisterhood, and camaraderie while always striving for excellence in their careers. While fire apparatus, equipment, and technology have improved, several things will always remain the same. The courage and bravery it takes to mitigate natural and man-made disasters will always be a part of the job. Although our retirees are no longer a physical part of the GFD world, a giant piece of each retiree's memories have been shared with you today. These memories will be in their hearts and minds forever. A special thank you goes out to Captain Harold Haney for his many long hours of recording and editing. Thank you, Harold. A job well done.